Hi, this is Alan Stead, bringing you another tutorial video on using Stencyl for Hope Tech. So let's go to their website and we'll click on Help again and Crash Course, and this time we're going to go through Crash Course 2. So you can either go along yourself or maybe use this video to help you. But basically it's going to create an invaders game, block game like this. So go ahead and click to get started. Now the first thing you'll want to do after you've installed Stencyl and all that is download the zip file containing all the assets. So I'm going to click here and unzip it. And let me open it up. And so this will kind of show you there's a bunch of different game assets in here. A couple of sounds and some pictures. And we'll get into that later. But for now, let me switch back over here. And I've already gone through it, but I'll go ahead and create a new one. So we'll create a new game, a blank game. I'm going to go ahead and create a blank game. And this time I'll call it Invaders 2. And we'll just leave the screen size default. So I'll go ahead and create it. Now let's go into, we have the same kind of options on the left. Let's go into actor types and let's start creating some actors. So let's create one and let's call it a ship. And now you'll see we have the ship, but we don't have any animation. So we'll click here to create an animation. And first thing you'll want to do is probably give it a name. So let's call this one Flying. And then we need to add the different frames to it. So let's go ahead and click to add the frames. Now you can choose your image, you can paste from the clipboard. We'll go ahead and choose an image, and let me browse to downloads. I have that there, assets, and let's pull this one up here. Now you'll notice it's split into 4 images. So if we switch this to 4 columns, it'll break this out for us and create the animation all by itself. So let's go ahead and hit add, and you'll see it split this up into 4 different pictures. Now we'll jump into the physics of this one. Let's also say, just like in the other crash course, that it can't rotate, and let's say it's not affected by gravity. Finally, in the properties section, let's go ahead and make this part of the players group. Now we can go ahead and let's save the game. Now we've got to look at the group collisions. So if we go into settings and groups, let's go ahead and create a couple things. Let's create the enemies group, and we'll also create the bullets group. This is to just help make it easier to look at what's going to collide with what and what can collide, those different things. The other thing we're going to want to do is make sure bullets collide with enemies, and then enemies should automatically now collide with bullets. Okay, let's go back to our actors, and let's create a new actor, and we'll call this enemy ship. Let's create it. Now again, we'll have to first add the animations for it. So let's just go ahead and call this normal. And let's go ahead and choose an image. And we'll go ahead and use this alien grabber image. And it's just one column. We don't have any animations for it. So we'll go ahead and add it. Now we'll look at the physics again. And we'll say it cannot be pushed. And I'm not really sure what some of the differences are here, the actor types. And then rotate will say no. And then affected by gravity is not, it's not even an option. Now for the properties, let's go ahead and make this part of the enemies group. Okay, now let's go back, let's create a new actor, and we'll call this one Bullet. And we've got to add the animation again. We'll just go ahead and call this one Bullet. And then we'll choose the image, and we'll use this image here. This one, it's split into 3, so let's set the number of columns to 3, and there's one row, and the spacing is 0, so there's no spacing or padding in here. Okay, we'll add that. We'll see it looks like the animation. Here on the left you can see it actually what it'll look like. And for physics for this, we'll set the Crash Course wants us to set this to normal, not rotate, and again not affected by gravity. And for the properties, we'll set this group to bullets. Now let's go back to the dashboard. We'll go to the backgrounds, and let's create a background here. And before we had a gradient, this time we're going to do something a little different. We'll use a picture background. So let's go ahead and call it stars. Create it. And then we'll go ahead and click here to add a frame. And then we'll choose an image. And let's pick this star background PNG file. And this is what it'll look like. Let's go ahead and hit add. And we should see it here. Let's go ahead and save again. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard. Now we can import some of our sounds. So let's go to here to sounds. Now there's a couple ways to do this. You can either click through and do it that way. You can also, let's bring the folder up, and we can just drag these in. Let's go back to the dashboard and to the folder. I could have also selected 2 of them. So now we've got our explosion sound and our galaxy or general shooter spacey level sound. So this one's the type is set to music. For the explosion, we're going to want to set this type to a sound effect. So now we've got our sounds in there. Let's go ahead and save the game again. Go back to the dashboard. Now let's get started creating some scenes. So let's create our first scene. We'll go ahead and call it level 1. Everything else is pretty much set the same. Okay, so we jump here into the scene designer, and you'll notice down here on the right there's layers. So let's go ahead and add a new layer. Let's add a background layer, and we'll choose the background stars. Now you'll notice stars is above layer 0. We're going to want to have it below so that you can see everything that's above it. So let's go ahead and move the stars background layer down to the bottom. And now we can actually test our scene, see if it comes up with the stars background. and it's compiling. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Now we can go ahead and add things to our scene. We can switch to the Actors tab over here, and let's add our ship. So we've got to make sure you add it on the screen itself. Oh, another thing is I still had the background selected. So let me move that up, make sure. Okay, there was nothing there. Back down. I've got to select layer 0 because I'm going to be adding them to layer 0, not to the background. And then we'll add some enemy ships. You can also turn on this grid view, and then you can also hold left shift and it'll kind of line it up to the grid if you want to evenly space things out. Or space them out a certain way. This actually isn't even. Okay, let's turn our grid back off. Let's go ahead and save it again. Now what we're going to want to do is add music to the scene. So in level 1, under events, we're going to go ahead and add an event. So over here under basics, there's 3 different events. There's when you're creating the scene, when you're drawing the scene, and when you're updating the scene. So let's go ahead and when we create the scene, so here we see some of the code flow. Now we didn't get into any of this in the last crash course, but now we're going to. So when we create the scene, let's go to some sounds and we'll play some sounds. So what you do is you just drag this. Sometimes it's hard to actually get a handle on it. So we'll play a sound and we choose the sound, General Shooter Spacey level. So we'll select that. Now if we test our scene, as soon as it loads we should hear the sound. There you go. And you should be able to hear the sound playing through the speakers. Kill it. Okay, now we'll go ahead and add another event, but actually we'll go ahead and do this to the ship. So we'll jump back to the actor type ship. We'll go to the events tab and let's add an event for this specific ship when it's updating. So you'll notice it says when updating. In the actual crash course it says always here. They must have changed something as they've updated the versions. Now what we're going to want to do is add a flow here because we're going to have the ship move. That's what this whole section is. Let's have the ship move. So if, and then you can select here user input, and let's say for a keyboard, so if the left key is down, and then we're going to want to do something if that's the case. Then we also have otherwise if, let's do if the control right key is down. Okay, so now what are we going to want to do if the left and right key is down? We're going to want to move the ship around. So what we're going to want to do is come over here to actors, and there's position, there's motion, properties. So we're going to want to come here to the motion tab, and we're going to want to set the X speed, so the X-axis speed of ourselves to a certain value. And what value? Well, we could just put a number here, but it's better to start using attributes or variables. So let's go ahead and create a attribute. So we'll switch over here to the attribute side. We'll create an attribute, and let's call it, let's see, what do they want us to call it? Ship speed. And this is of type, it's a number. So say OK. So we'll set the X speed to ship speed for self. Now for the other side, we can right click here, should be able to duplicate it, drag that in. Now if one of these is going right, one of these is going left. So for left, we're going to want to set the ship speed to negative. So let's move this out here for a second. Let's add, whoops, remove that. I found it's hard to remove it when it's in there. I've got to actually drag it out here and then hit remove. But let's click the negate, so we'll make it negative. The negative ship speed if we're moving left, and then if we're moving right, it's the actual ship speed. Now the other thing is, if we're not pushing left or right, we want it to stop. Otherwise it'll just keep going. So let's add another flow control, another otherwise if. So if left, if right, or if neither one is pressed down. So let's bring an AND in here, and then we're going to need a NOT. Let's do it over here, and it might be a little easier to see it all. And then let's go back to the, it's user input, control is down, so let's drag that in here, and this one in here. So if, choose attribute, left is not down, and then choose attribute, right is not down. So let's drag that in there, and that one into there. So if neither of these are down, we're going to want to set the X speed. So let's, instead of, we're not getting the attribute, we're setting the attribute. But of an actual, of an actual actor. So the motion, set the X speed of an actor to 0. So click in there and then just hit 0. So now if the left is down, we're going to set the X speed to negative ship speed. If the right is down, we're going to set it to ship speed. If neither of them are down, we're going to set it to 0. Now the last thing we need to do here for this to work is we need to actually give ship speed a value. So we could switch over to the attributes tab down here, and here's our ship speed attribute. The default value is 0. We'll go ahead and give it an attribute 20. So it's going to move at speed of 20. Now let's go ahead and save it, and let's switch to our scene level 1, and let's test the scene. So we should see the music playing, the actors on the scene, and we should be able to move the ship left and right. Move this so it's invisible. So there we go, left and right, and you notice it goes off the screen. So let's fix that. So next we want to, when we're updating for the ship, so let's go back to the ship. When we're updating, let's just add another when updating. And now let's just go back to our palette here and look at our flow. So if we are on off to the left of the screen or off to the right of the screen. So let's put in two conditions here. And these are going to be comparisons. So if our position is less than 0, or if our position is greater than the width of the screen, let's change our position. So for this first item here, we're going to want to choose an actor and the position of the actor. And they want us to switch from X to X on screen of the actor is less than 0. That's the beginning. And then otherwise, let's go here, actor and X on screen of the actor is greater than. Now, this is a little tricky. You don't want to just put in the screen width, because there's a width to the actor as well. So you need to subtract the width of the actor because it's counting from the left side. So we need to put in a subtraction math, whatever this is called, in here. And let's get the screen width. So there's a scene, I think it's under scene. Yeah, so scene, view, and then here's screen. So the screen width minus the actor's width. So let's take, I'll be able to do it right here. Actor, yeah. So minus the width of the actor. And for all of these, let's actually switch from actor to self to make sure it's pulling the right actor. So if our X is less than 0, do something here. Otherwise, if our X is greater than the screen width minus our width, do something else. Now, what are we going to want to do? We're going to want to set the position for the actor. So let's drag that into both of these. So set the X for the actor. On this case, let's set it to, I believe it's 1. And then for the second one, we're going to want to set it to the edge. So very similar to what we did over here. Let's see if I can duplicate this and bring it down here. But we're going to want to subtract 1 from this as well. So let's add another. So we're going to subtract 1, and then let's drag this whole thing into there. So screen width minus the width of ourselves minus 1. And that's what we're going to set our X position to for ourselves. Okay, so now we should be able to stay on the bounds of the screen. Let's go ahead and save it. We'll switch to level 1 and we'll test the scene. Okay, it's compiling again. Move it in here. So now if I hold down the right arrow key, see we now stay on the screen. Okay, let's look at what's next. Let's enable some bullets to be fired. So to do this, we'll go back to our ship. We've already got the 2 updating events there. We'll go ahead and add a new event, and this is input and keyboard. So when some key is pressed, we'll go ahead and do something, and let's choose the control. Let's select action 1. So when action 1 is pressed, what are we going to do? We're going to create an actor. So let's go to, it's under scenes, I believe, actors, create actor. Let's keep it out of here for now. And then I believe you can also motion, push actor. So we'll create an actor and then we'll push it. So for the actor, we'll create bullet. And where do we want to place it? So we want to place it right where we are. So let's take the position of ourselves, and we're the ship right now. So at X of self, and there's a couple different ways to do this here. And why is this not rolling over? Y of self. Let's go ahead and drag that in. There we go. Now it's at front. So we'll go ahead, we'll create a bullet at our own position, and then we'll push it. So we'll push, what do we want to push? We want to push the last created actor, and let's push it sharply towards, the X direction is 0, 0. We don't want it to go anywhere left or right, but we want it to go up. So if you want it to go up, it'll be -1. And then what kind of force do we want to use? Let's go ahead and put 40. This is another place where you could probably create a game attribute to set the speed of the bullets. Okay. So now we'll create them and we'll push them. So let's go ahead and save the game. And let's test the scene. Let's go to level 1, test scene. Compiling again. Okay, so as soon as I hit Z, you see it creates the bullets. So sometimes it goes off the screen, and when it hits one of the enemies, it just kind of stays there. So we got to now actually make the bullets do something. So to do that, we'll switch back to our bullet actor, and we'll go to the events, and we'll add some events for the bullet. So you'll notice there's a bunch of different types of events. So let's look at collisions. So when this actor collides with an actor of type. That's how they want us to do it. So when the bullet itself hits, choose an actor type, an enemy ship, and then there's a couple of things we do. Use the first actor and the actor of type, the first variable and the second variable. So what we're going to want to do is go to actors, and then there should be something in here to, there we go, alive or dead. So we'll kill the self. So this will make it so that the bullet, when it hits the enemy ship, the bullet goes away. The bullet gets killed. The next thing we want it to do is when it does this, we want it to also attack or hit the enemy ship, kill the enemy ship. So we could just have it kill the enemy ship right here, but let's actually give the ship some health points and make it a little fancier. So what we're going to want to do here is trigger an event. So yeah, it's under behaviors. So trigger an event in all behaviors for an actor. So let's drag that in. We'll put it above here. Trigger event, and they want us to just give it a name. So hit in all behaviors for, and you can actually just drag this in here, the actor of type. So when it hits this enemy ship, it's going to trigger an event hit in that enemy ship and then kill itself as the bullet. Now we'll switch over to the enemy ship and handle the other side of this. And we'll go to the events and we'll add an event, advanced, and we'll call it a custom event, and we'll give it a name hit. So when hit happens, it's going to do something here. So let's create a variable to track health points. So when the enemy ship, when it's hit, we want to, let's create an attribute called health points, and it's a number. And let's go ahead and set it default value to 3. Let's jump back. So when we're hit, we want to have this health point go down. So there's actually, I think it's in numbers, yeah, right here. So let's drag this one in. Let's decrement health points by 1. Now when we start, let's create the health point. So let's go ahead and add an event, basic, and then when creating. So when we're creating this enemy ship, let's look at our attributes and let's set the health points to 3. So when we're creating the ship, we'll set the health points to 3. When we're hit, it'll decrement 1 from the health points variable. Now we need to also monitor what happens. So let's go add an event basics when updating. So what we need to do here is check the health points. So let's go under flow. We'll drag our if condition in here. And if our health points are less than something, so let's go ahead and drag that in. And then what are we checking? Well, our health points, and let's see if they're less than, actually we should do less than or equal to. So let me remove this. We could have done less than 1 as well. So attributes, health points, less than or equal to 0. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to go ahead and properties, kill the enemy ship, so kill self. And then we can also take advantage of some of those sounds. So let's go to sounds and let's play, drag that in here. Let's play a sound. We'll choose the sound explosion. Now the other thing that you can do in here is do some effects on the actual enemy ship, the appearance of it. So let's play around with some of that. So we'll do it somewhere in here. Let's look at, I think it's under actors, effects. So one of these is make negative. It'll take the negative image of it, and you'll see what that looks like. And then you have to apply the effect to the actor, and then we have to also remove the effect. And then it's got to be after a certain amount of time. So let's look at after a certain amount of time. So first we'll apply the make negative effect to ourselves, and then after some time, let's say 0.1 seconds, so it'll just be a quick blink, we'll remove all the effects. And then we'll tie these together and we'll drop all of this in. Oh, I did this in the wrong place. We don't want to do this here. So So let me remove all this stuff. We'll do it again. When we're hit, we want to do that. We don't want to necessarily do it when we're dying. Let's do it for every hit. So let's go back, look at our actors effects. So we're going to apply effect, make it negative, and then we're going to remove all effects, flow time. So there we go. After 0.1 seconds, we'll remove the effects, and we'll do this right after we decrement that one point. We'll go ahead and make it look like we've been hit. Okay, let's go back to our level 1. We can save the game and we'll test the scene. So now, once we've been hit 3 times, the ship should disappear and we should see a little flashing making the image negative whenever it's hit. So let's test this out. So there you can see it flashed as soon as it was hit. There again. And once we hit the 3rd time, you hear the sound of the explosion and the ship is gone. Okay, next let's create some kind of a message when you've won the game. So to do that, we'll go back to the main dashboard and let's create a font. And we'll just call it default font. Create it. We can pretty much leave everything here. The one thing that it was a black background, so we'll probably have to change the color so that it's visible. Let's go ahead and make it red so that it really stands out. Okay, let's save the game. And now let's go back to dashboard here. Actually, no, we want to go to our level 1 scene. And so what we're going to want to do is add an event, and there's a I think it's when an actor is created or dies, and we'll choose a member of a group. So when an actor of enemies group is killed, let's go ahead and count how many we've killed. So in order to do this, we're going to need another variable. So let's go ahead and create a new attribute, and they want us to call it victory counter, and this is a number. Hit OK, and we're going to want to do something with this. So let's increment. So we'll increment our victory counter by 1 whenever an actor of enemy is killed. Now we'll go back and add another event. When updating, so what we're going to want to do is check to make sure how many we've killed. So let's bring in an if condition. So if something equals anything else, and what we're going to want to check is our attribute, our victory counter, and let's see, how many of those did I create? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if our victory counter equals 5, we've won the game. So let's create another attribute. Let's go over here for attributes, create another attribute called win, and we'll set this to, this is a boolean, which means yes or no. So we're going to want to set our attribute to yes or true. Now let's make sure by default that that attribute is set to false, and it is, or no. Otherwise you just win the game right away. So what do we want to do when we've won? So let's go ahead and add when drawing, and let's check if we've won. Well, we also have to set the current font. So let's go here to, I think it's under styles. Yeah, here it is, styles and set current font. So we're going to want to set our current font to the default font. And then let's check if we've won. I guess we can always do this inside the if condition as well. So if we've won, so let's check our attribute. So if we've won, let's go ahead and draw something. So this, let's draw some text, and let's put you win, and let's place it at pixel 300 by 240. There's probably some way to do like a screen width and something like that here as well. I haven't played around with it. If you want to know what the positions are here, you can go back to the screen and you'll see down here in the bottom left your X and Y counter for wherever it's going to be placing it. So you can figure out where you want to place it and then write down those numbers and then come back and put them in here. So now we've set our coordinates, and let's save, and let's go ahead and test the scene. So now we should see the you win as soon as we've killed 5 of the enemies. Let me move it over here. Let's start on this guy. So there we go. We have the UN message. You can of course play with the font, change it around. So now the last thing that this tutorial covers is exporting this. So let's go up here up to publish, and for the web we'll export it as a Flash game. Finalizing. It should pop up asking us where it wants us to save it. And let's go ahead and put it on the desktop. I've already created the other one. Let's go ahead and call it Invaders 2. And the game has been exported. Now if I browse to my desktop, there you see Invaders 2 is a Flash object, and I can open this up and it's our game. And there you go. So that's going through Crash Course 2, creating the Invaders game. Thank you.